Nutter, loony, psycho, schizo, mad axeman runs amok. Those are the kind of banner headlines that people with mental health problems face.
Go, oh, look at that nutter, or we don't want to mix with them, they're mad, they're off their head, they're dangerous, they're violent.
What are they going to do? What are they going to say? How are they going to behave? Where are they going to go? How are they going to treat you? Will they be violent?
People with mental health problems are no more likely to be violent criminals than anybody else. And these kind of images, this kind of language, it's used to abuse people with mental health problems, and it also stops people from seeking help.
Even if people's symptoms have completely gone away, their lives may still be affected by the fact that they have been mentally ill in the past.
The reason I really want to make this film is because I'm convinced that with a bit more understanding, a bit more dealing with fears about mental illness, a great difference can be made to the lives of people who have been mentally ill and are recovering or are coping with mental illness in the community.
What people don't understand, what people don't understand, they're scared of, really. That's what the whole point of this video is, to understand mental illness, and if you understand something, you're not scared of it anymore.
I want this film to achieve more awareness, more people actually spending more time with people who are mentally ill instead of, passing them off as a statistic.
There aren't just a few people over there who've got severe mental health problems and all the rest of us who are fine. Any one of us can experience a bereavement, can have a panic attack, can feel anxious or depressed. So mental health problems concern all of us. 1 in 7 adults has a mental health problem that's severe enough to be diagnosed and for them to need to seek help. But many more people, perhaps 1 in 4, will at some time in their lives experience a mental health problem severe enough to stop them functioning as they normally would, enjoying life as they normally would.
I first became ill in 1973 when I was taking a course in social work. Gradually my behaviour became, people tell me, a bit bizarre. I began to think that what was in the books was actually about me or had some special significance. I began eventually to think I had religious powers, and I thought my life was determined by all sorts of forces and electricity in the air. I had no concept that I was ill. It was how I was, to me, as real as just being here now.
I really felt totally alone because I didn't know it was a mental illness, and I didn't know who to go to ask about it. I was too embarrassed to tell anybody as well, and I was very frightened. From hindsight, I should have got help a lot sooner.
At the time, my wife seems like the biggest killjoy out, because I perceive everything to be natural and okay, and I cannot understand why she's calling the doctor. There have been occasions when there have been doctors and psychiatrists and social workers outside the house, and eventually an ambulance man to get me away, and I've had to be injected by 4 nurses.
When Phil's admitted, he always blamed me, saying it was me that wanted him in hospital, that I wanted him out of the way, which put an awful load of guilt on me.
Yes, I think it is one of the hardest things, if you see somebody, a loved one, somebody close to you, and you feel that you can't do anything more, and you really feel that, they would be better off to be in hospital or to see a psychiatrist. It's a very hard step to take, I think.
And it surprised me that hardly anyone ever actually got in touch with me. Nobody phoned, nobody sent me a card.
at times I could have walked away from it. I think I would have felt very, very guilty that I'd not really offered him the support that he needed at that time.
These highs, yes, they are very enjoyable, and that's the big trouble. It's very seductive, like maybe getting drunk at a party. You don't know you've had just that drink too many. And so with this, you get a bit excitable, fun, people laughing. It is very enjoyable. The only way really to cope with it is a big dose of what they call major tranquilizers. Is there some fungi around on that side? I feel myself to have been extraordinarily lucky when I come out of hospital, because through all of this my family has stayed with me and given me support.
I know from visiting Phil in hospital, I've seen people that you can obviously see are never going to be able to learn to cope because they've got nobody there to support them.
She's always seen the person of value underneath. And that however peculiarly or in whatever bizarre way I've acted, she's always wanted to support just the decent chap that I want to be, you know. Oh, I'm losing it, Vesta.
When I was taken in hospital was 9 years ago, and I was in and out of hospital for 6 months and then 6 months recovering at home, and I went back to work almost exactly 12 months after it had happened. I was a deputy head in a large comprehensive school, which had just been formed from the amalgamation of two schools. So the job was demanding and at that time quite stressful. I was very tired. I found it difficult to concentrate. I was dizzy at times. And then I had palpitations, and what I now know was panic attacks. I didn't know then. I thought I was having a heart attack or a stroke or something like that.
Marjorie would ring me at all hours of the day or night and say, you have to come. You must come today, because if you leave it till tomorrow, I shall be dead.
When Marjorie was in the pits, right at the bottom, I thought, this is worse than death.
Didn't want to believe it was mental illness because I thought that was a life sentence. I thought you didn't get better.
And I just didn't know how to cope with it, quite simply. And there was nobody who I felt I could talk to.
Some people came to see me in a hospital once and couldn't face it again. I was so introverted. I wasn't the person they knew.
Local people knew she'd gone in hospital, but I didn't admit what she'd gone in for. Who's the consultant? And I didn't say. I didn't like to admit that she had mental illness.
It was horrendous at the time, for me and for my family.
Her mood swings could be unbelievable, from being the most radiant smile you could ever wish for anybody, you know, the kind that sort of melts you, literally, and makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And she's so glad to see you. And then maybe I was seeing her twice a day, and then you go in the evening, sod off.
Ducks diving under there.
Oh yes, that's where the heron was in the summer fishing.
Just one?
Yes, there was only one there, because it used to fish there.
And our pond.
Oh yes, it emptied the pond, didn't it?
My husband was the key to my recovery. How people cope when they have no one there 24 hours a day, I don't know. How people are released from hospital to live alone, to manage their drugs, Without that support, without somebody there to say, it is time to take your drugs, to say, Marjorie, you must eat today, because I didn't bother about eating. For somebody to be there to hold you when you are shaking, because some of the drugs do that to you, and when you are absolutely terrified.
I think we're happier now than we ever have been.
Well, that's the fort. Is that me on the top?
Yes,
With the
yes.
hat on?
Yeah, that's right.
Good morning, Frank. Nice to see you. It's lousy this much. Cold out there this morning, isn't it? You know, if you'd told me then and come to see me and said, Marjorie, in 10 years' time, you will be a reader in the Church of England. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Are you all right to do your normal thing? You will be the emergency services manager for the WRVS. Sure. That goes into the new training. You will go in the nursery school and you will play the piano. I would have said something very rude to you. Very, very rude, because I simply would not have believed it. I didn't think I'd ever walk out of the front door again.
Mental illness covers a broad spectrum of different kinds of problems. I think this is important for people to realise. Mental illness covers as many different kinds of conditions as does physical illness. There are the kind of coughs and colds of mental health, just as there are in the general health field. And they're very common. They're going to affect just people like you and me. There are 3 different types of the most severe forms of mental illness. There is schizophrenia, manic depressive psychosis, and the more serious kinds of depression. Schizophrenia is primarily a disorder of thinking. People who are in a schizophrenic episode just feel that their thinking is somehow not their own anymore.
Part of my illness is hearing voices, and those voices appear in lots of different forms. Some aggressive, some violent, some passive, some caring. They basically tell you either to commit suicide or not to commit suicide or whatever. They pick you up on things they think you're doing wrong. So that leads you to believe that people can read your mind and read what you're thinking. You're talking about sort of 30 or 40 people talking to you all at once. There'd be people coming out emptying rubbish systematically, sort of every 5 minutes, and they'd be giving you new messages, then banging the lid shut. And I remember I was just sitting in my room in a chair, very like this one, I just thought, right, I've had enough, and I looked out the window, and the street was dead. I thought, no, this can't be right. I get a lot of messages from the TV, which can be either enjoyable or distressing. You think they're referring to you.
Push against me so that we're equal. You're not pushing me out, you're not beating me.
I'm really involved in Classworks community theatre. It's been a great lifeline for me. Jenny Goulet is very supportive, bit of an angel really.
Nathaniel has changed over the period that he's been coming to the community theatre group. He's gained a lot of confidence in his own opinions. He's changed in that he's acquired skills that he didn't have before, and those are something to do with his own physicality, how he copes with the drug treatment he's on, which causes him sometimes to move in ways that he's not in total control over, and yet he tries so hard, he works so hard at controlling that. I have just every admiration for the way he does it.
When it comes to treatment in mental illness, it's always quite complicated because people need a range of different kinds of interventions to help them with their problems. Medication is usually useful in addressing people's symptoms, and obviously some psychological treatments can also help.
The drugs used in treatment of schizophrenia have a range of side effects, such as sedation, which tend to be mild and tend to wear off with time. There is, however, another group of side effects which are considerably more troublesome, and these, broadly speaking, affect a person's movement.
None of the things that people notice about me, it's got nothing to do with my illness, it's the side effects of the drugs. My hand trembling.
You're very sedated, you know, you're very slow on your feet. You're very kind of hampered with your movements.
That is merely neurological. That is not about the personality. That is about the medication that often we have given them and not recognised the long-term, long-standing side effects.
When they take their medication, it makes them sociably acceptable, but it kills all their emotions, and they suffer these side effects so that other people can feel comfortable for them to be in the world.
Dr. Jameson in the States says that mental illness can lead to genius, but mental illness certainly leads to creativity when it's not dampened down by drugs. What the psychiatrists do, basically, is they dampen down all our creativity, put us on drugs, and then we're bloody zombies. Hopeless.
Untold suffering, agony. You're unwell. Take these pills, ringing in their dying ears. Abandoned, spurned by society, called mad, deluded, crazy, oddball, etc., and cast onto the tip, soon to be forgotten, lest we forget. That's my poem.
Manic depressive psychosis, on the other hand, is primarily a disorder of people's mood.
I'm a manic depressive. I don't mind saying I'm a manic depressive. It's been a long time now since I've been out of hospital, and I'm not really too bothered what people call me, as long as they don't persistently call me mad or a nutter or something like that. So that when things got on top of me, I would sort of detach myself from reality and go into an unnatural high, where I would rush around, spend money, talk a great deal, perhaps be offensive and obnoxious to people. I sort of get into a kind of self-willed desire to spiral downwards. That's what I'm like when I start getting depressed and anxious. And when I'm going into higher moods, I tend to get more and more grandiose thoughts about being a great writer or very well known.
I was very high, and then I put in the hospital and I got very low. And basically I was homeless. I ended up in a YMCA. The only friends I had around me were suicidal. I was very suicidal myself. I had thoughts of suicide all the time. It was the lowest point of my life, and I wouldn't like to ever get back there. It's just so painful and it lasted for a long time as well. I mean, that's the thing about being high, is that for most people that are high, they have those awful lows afterwards, you know, and they're pretty awful. Yeah, pretty awful, really. Yeah.
I'm someone who has to struggle in life because I have schizophrenia. I'm a schizophrenic sufferer. I've got to lead my life as best I can in the community, in spite of the fact that I'm mentally unwell. My life is quite simple. I just have to do what I can to be well from schizophrenia. The symptoms change, like you'll see a little face in your mind and you don't know who it is, and very rarely you do know who it is, and then you hear voices often telling you to do things which aren't good things to do. You have sort of enemies as well as allies. I've got a good personality, but I've been told, but I tend to change, you know, rather a lot. You know, I'll shake and I'll sort of feel tremendously in need of having some help. You know, it's a sort of exaggerated way of being. You're permanently kind of having to do something when it's not necessary at all. I was on the bus and I suddenly felt breathless, and I put my hand on the little rail on the bus, and I began to heave and pant, and I didn't know whether I'd do something ghastly, like throw myself out the front of the bus or something like that, because I could not stop a feeling of panic. It went away in the end. I think I got off the bus and went and ate a couple of Mars bars.
Carola has lived at Pringle House since we opened up 6 years ago, and one of the first people to come in. And I remember her feeling so pleased that she'd had the opportunity to come here. People who have seen her potential when she's been at day centres and have been able to get her into some part-time work.
Do you know anything much about ducks?
No, not really. I know there are African ducks. Julia's been a tremendous help to me. Given the help, I'm all right. You know, I can live in an environment in the community because I'm given enough help.
That's a lovely one. That's the beigey one.
I hope I won't use up all this hot water, Julia.
She's someone who's been very keen to have an active life in and outside of the house.
I'll be doing my gardening. Richie gets me set up with a job to do each weekend. I go and stay in the garden.
Well, after 6 years of Carola being here, she now has the chance to move out to our new group home. Perhaps you could do with one of those in your room. The chest of drawers for Carola.
I think it's on the right, dear.
Is it? When she was offered a place, she was absolutely thrilled to bits.
What did you want? That was the dresser that I noticed.
Do you think they're going to be strong enough?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
One of the things I think we do know about major mental illness is that there isn't one cause. Clearly there is a physical basis to the conditions that I've talked about. You can point to abnormalities in the chemistry of the brain, and that's why the medications are helpful, because they operate to try and correct those imbalances in people's brain chemistry. But it's not as simple as that. And clearly there is a component of stress in these conditions. People are likely to experience recurrent episodes of major mental illness following periods of life change or stress.
It's usually stress, I think, the trigger. If you're getting a bit stressed out about something. I suffered from compulsive disorders when I was young. I was used to touch things twice and blink a lot, you know, like that. Both schoolmates probably thought I was particularly potty. But yes, I think it was stress and inability to cope with stress. Yes. Yes.
I think I went into children's home because my mother was mentally ill to a certain degree and she couldn't look after me. I hated her to begin with because I couldn't understand why she gave me up. But when I looked at my records, I actually felt sorry for her. Do you know what I mean? Because I thought, well, you can't blame her, as she did the best for me. Well, I don't know where my mother is, but I had a letter on Monday from a sister of mine who wrote to me through the Social Security, because I sent a letter to Social Security to send on to any of my sisters, and he did. So hopefully in the new year I'll be able to meet one of my sisters.
Sally is a mother of one of our very difficult patients, and she is an incredible lady because her tremendous courage and her terrible loneliness struck me to the heart.
Don't invite them round for Christmas, we don't want them round. I've had Christmas on my own for 6 years now. He got tortured uptown. He got burnt down here, shaved, burnt with lighters. We've been through so many things together. I couldn't believe that it could happen to us, really, especially having worked in the hospital with schizophrenics, and then it's happening to you. You can't believe it. It's just like completely devastating. It's heartbreaking. And you become a social outcast as well as your son. In the beginning, you're always hoping they're going to get better, but you have to accept at the end that they're not going to.
Now, care in the community policy shouldn't mean getting on as best you can outside hospital. It should mean that there are communities of people, of men and women, ready to welcome those who have come from hospital or who are coping with mental illness outside hospital.
We can all do something to promote mental health within our communities simply by becoming better listeners, by working to improve the community, to tackle those issues which affect mental health. So you may want to get involved in a support group or a voluntary organisation that works specifically with people who have mental health problems.
Oh no!
Lots of lovely things in here.
What would you like in your sandwich, Maxine? Cheese or ham?
As a befriender, usually what we do get up to is just talking and having coffee. Me and Maxine tend to laugh a lot just because we tend to usually be eating and drinking and doing things like that. But it's nice to share those sorts of things.
I think they see us coming every week, you know. We all
Certainly it's great to have Maxine coming round sort of every week. Sort of for me, it gives me something, you know. And she says, "Oh, you're very good," sort of phoning and talking. I said, "Well, no, it's nice. You're my friend now." Gone up to Cherrington Hall to try and feed the ducks and have a walk round there. And certainly now it's lovely to do that because she loves autumn, as do I. And we'll go and have a good play in the leaves with the children.
And she's been a tremendous friend to me, a real gem. Best friend I've ever had. So dependable, and she's always there, and she says, even though she's got two lovely little boys to look after, she's always got time for me. And she sends me round bouquets of flowers, sometimes when I'm feeling low, and just little things like that make all the difference. You know, it's just wonderful.
It's very important to have the befriending scheme. People from the social services have told us that their clients actually value it perhaps even more highly.